During the final years of the Second World War, Japan launched one of the most unusual weapons ever used in modern warfare. It wasn't a bomber, a submarine, or even a missile. It was a hydrogen-filled balloon, the world's first intercontinental bomb. Their plan was simple: let the jet stream carry the balloons across the Pacific Ocean and drop incendiary bombs on North American forests. They were called Fugo balloon bombs, and dozens of them landed right here in British Columbia. By 1944, with the war turning against Japan, their military sought a way to strike North American mainland. The answer came from an atmospheric phenomenon only recently understood: the jet stream. By attaching incendiary bombs to large hydrogen balloons, Japanese scientists believed they could float weapons nearly 10,000 kilometers across the Pacific Ocean in as little as 3 days. The Fugo balloon bomb concept began in 1933 at the Noborito Research Institute under Lieutenant General Raikiki Tada, proposing a hydrogen-filled balloon 4 meters in diameter with a time fuse, capable of delivering bombs up to 110 kilometers, but the project was abandoned by 1935. After the Doolittle raid in 1942, Japan sought ways to retaliate against the U.S., testing submarine-launched seaplanes. On September 9, 1942, one of these dropped incendiary bombs in Oregon's Siskiyou National Forest, though the fires were quickly contained and the program was cancelled. That same month, Major General Sueki Kusaba revived Fugo, developing 20-foot washi paper balloons glued with potato paste that could float at 25,000 feet for up to 30 hours. Plans for roughly 200 submarine launches 1,000 kilometers off the U.S. coast were prepared but scrapped when the submarines were diverted to combat. Ironically, Japan wasn't the only nation experimenting with this idea. Around the same time, Britain launched Operation Outward, sending nearly 100,000 hydrogen balloons against Germany. The concept came from barrage balloons that broke free from their moorings, dragging their steel cables behind them. Operation Outward wreaked havoc on German infrastructure, shorting out power lines and damaging facilities across the country, proving that balloons could in fact be surprisingly effective weapons. Unlike Britain's balloons, which disrupted German power supplies, Japan's effort would be hampered by timing and weather, something that would become clear as the campaign unfolded. Engineers then studied launching balloons directly from Japan, a 10,000-kilometer journey. Their goal was to use powerful high-altitude air currents, later known as jet streams, first charted by scientist Wasaburo Oishi in the 1920s. In 1943, meteorologist Hidetoshi Arakawa confirmed that balloons flying at 30,000 to 35,000 feet could ride those winds to North America in 30 to 60 hours, with the strongest currents blowing from November to March that could reach speeds up to 320 kilometers per hour. Japan tested 2 designs, the Army's A-type made of layered washi paper and the Navy's B-type of rubberized silk. The Navy's version failed almost immediately, so Japan moved forward with the A-type, which could stay aloft long enough to reach North America, carrying loads of around 300 pounds despite a theoretical capacity closer to 1,000. Because the balloons were fixed volume, they were vulnerable to pressure changes. In the daytime heat, they risked bursting, while at night, cooling air could drag them down. To keep altitude, the Army developed a simple but clever ballast system. A relief valve released gas if pressure built too high, while a series of sandbags were dropped automatically when the balloon sank too low. Once the sandbags were gone and the hydrogen leaked away, the balloons descended, triggering the bomb release at low altitude before a final self-destruct charge destroyed the frame. An estimated 9,300 Fugo balloons were launched from Japan between November 1944 and April 1945. Each bomb's payload consisted of 4 11-pound thermite incendiary devices with a mechanical impact fuse and 1 33-pound high-explosive anti-personnel bomb surrounded by a shrapnel ring. Out of the thousands released, an estimated 10%, or roughly 900 to 1,000 balloons reached North America, although there were only 285 recovered or observed landings. The rest were assumed to have either fallen into the Pacific, landed in remote wilderness, or burned up unnoticed. The hope from Japan was that these balloons would spark massive wildfires and cause widespread panic, diverting American resources away from the war effort to focus on fighting wildfires. But most arrived in winter or early spring when conditions were far too wet for flames to spread. Instead, they became strange, sometimes frightening discoveries for rural communities. Of those found, many were still fully intact, indicating a faulty payload release mechanism. Often, these were still carrying live bombs. While the intended target of the Fugo bombs was America, dozens landed in Canada, reaching as far as Manitoba, with the majority of Canadian incidents occurring throughout British Columbia. The Canadian government, along with the United States, imposed a strict news blackout. They didn't want Japan to know the balloons were reaching their targets successfully. Newspapers were instructed not to report the discoveries until after the war. There are at least 2 confirmed cases where the Royal Canadian Air Force intercepted and shot down Fugo balloons. In February 1945, Royal Canadian Air Force P-40 Kitty Hawks scrambled from Patricia Bay after radar picked up unidentified contacts. At least 1 balloon was intercepted and destroyed. Another balloon was intercepted and destroyed the following month near Salt Spring Island. The most serious incident occurred on March 10, 1945, when a balloon came down near Toppenish, Washington, and struck power lines supplying the Hanford Engineer Works. The short circuit shut down electricity to the Manhattan Project facility, though backup systems restored power to the site. It took 3 days before plutonium reactors were fully running again, and the material they produced would later be used in Fat Man, the atomic bomb dropped on Nagasaki. The U.S. military's press blackout on the balloon bombs ended after a tragedy on May 5, 1945. That day, a Sunday school group discovered a balloon on Gerhardt Mountain near Bly, Oregon. Unaware of the danger, they approached it, and the bomb exploded, killing 5 children and a pregnant woman. In response, the government abandoned its silence and launched a broad educational campaign warning citizens not to touch strange objects in the woods. These 6 deaths became the only American fatalities from enemy action within the continental United States during the war. In the end, Operation Fugo failed to meet its goals. Japan had hoped to ignite massive forest fires, but the balloons arrived during the wettest winter of the decade, when forests were snow-covered or drenched. The secondary aim to spread panic was prevented by the press blackout, which kept most citizens unaware of the campaign until it was already over. As recently as 2014, forestry workers spotted a device half buried in the Monashee Mountains near Lumby, BC. It was a live Fugo bomb that had gone unnoticed for 70 years. Police cordoned off the area and contacted the bomb disposal unit at Maritime Forces Pacific. The bomb squad put C4 on either side of it and blew it up. 5 years later, in 2019, on a steep hillside above the Roush River near Valemont, Baudry Waddell stumbled across what he thought was an old burner used by some backwoods distiller. Turns out he had discovered the remnants of another Fugo device. The Fugo campaign is one of the most unusual episodes of World War II, and a little-known part of British Columbia's wartime history. Balloons launched from the other side of the Pacific ended up scattered across our forests, mountains, and coastlines. They may not have changed the course of the war, but they showed how even remote parts of British Columbia were touched by global conflict.